with a random act on everything.
Welcome back to Every Church, a Peace Church. It's a program that promotes the belief that the church could turn the world towards peace if the church lived and taught as Jesus lived and taught. Our guest today is a very special guest, a very special friend, a very special person in our community. It's Dr. Robert Franklin, public theologian and the brand new 10th president of Morehouse College. Dr. Franklin has written a book that's called Crisis in the Village. We're going to talk a little bit about his book, Crisis in the Village, and we're going to talk about his new experience that at Morehouse College as its new president, its 10th president in its many-year history of providing young men the opportunity to learn and to act with courage and with commitment to community. Dr. Franklin, welcome back. I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you, Don, for having me.
You're a beautiful friend of mine.
Thank you, sir.
And I want to express, as a Morehouse graduate, how happy and proud I was that you were selected to serve the college, which will serve our community, our nation, and our world. But before we talk a little bit about Morehouse, I want to talk about your latest effort. The Crisis in the Village, your authorship of that particular volume. I want to ask you initially, what prompted you to write this piece about the crisis in the village? What is the village that we're talking about? What is the crisis that you are talking about? And what are the solutions to those crises?
The village I refer to primarily is the African American community. All Americans live in villages, in neighborhoods, and together we constitute something of a national village. So I'm using both the local and national understanding of village. Inside every village there are what I call anchor institutions, and the book's focus is on 3 anchor institutions: families, churches, and schools. The essential crisis is that during the post-civil rights movement years, African American villages, neighborhoods, families, churches, and schools have lost significant ground.
Yes.
So that today there are more young African Americans in prison than in college. 70% in many school districts of young black boys who enroll in 9th grade do not graduate 4 years later with their peers. The incidence of family breakup, of non-marital births, declining marriage rates prompts what I've decided to call a crisis within the village.
Well, it's a crisis that is for people who live in the village, as we do. It's particularly important and profound problem that needs a commitment to help solve. What are some of your solutions in terms of dealing with you start out with the family?
Yes.
What are some of the solutions to the crisis in the African American village for families?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question, Don, because we should start with family. Even Plato acknowledged that the building block of a society is its families. And the challenge for us, first of all, I open every chapter with 10 or 15 facts that every educated person ought to know about families, churches, and schools.
It's an easy read, by the way.
Well, I appreciate that. It didn't put you to sleep.
No, it didn't.
Well, terrific. I begin by noting that African Americans were brought to this country, largely from Central West Africa, to work, not to enjoy conventional family bonds. And so the early African population was largely a male population, and marriage was prevented by law. And I think we need to remember that. And so there was dramatic increase in African American marriages once we were freed after 1865. Mm-hmm. And that really began to peak in the 1950s. And since that time, we've seen real decline. And so the solution is that I'd like to see every village, every parent, every adult in the African American community begin to talk about what we need to do to revive a culture of healthy relationships.
Yeah. The family, in particular, for African Americans, was so completely severed,
Yes.
and became in that separation. We don't find and can't find our roots. I cannot go beyond
Yes.
the only grandparent that I knew met was my maternal grandfather. I can't go beyond my grandparents and who they are.
Yes. Yes.
Now, you compare that experience with our Caucasian neighbors, and they can trace their lines. So some, of course, the Mayflower,
Yes.
and their history in Ireland or in France or in Italy, and they can go that far. And the strength of that bond from the United States to Europe has assisted the development of the Caucasian family.
Yes.
And the breaking of the connection between the United States and Africa has made us in many cases, dysfunctional family for a period of time, and it seems to be not getting better, it seems to getting worse.
No, you're absolutely right. Maya Angelou said that history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. And I think that we have to face that difficult history, but then look forward so that we don't have to get stuck in the past. One of the wonderful things about science and DNA is that now African Americans are beginning to trace their gene pools back, and my family has done that, and we have roots in Liberia, we discovered.
Well, I know that I'm not pure African.
Yes, none of us are.
None of us are. And I think every African American in the United States is part Indian.
Yes.
Or Native American, I should say. But I know that there is a sliver of African in me that is predominant in my personality and the things I do and say and want to do. So whatever it is, it's a dominant part of my gene structure.
And I'd say it's beautiful.
Well, thank you. I say it's beautifwant too.
Indeed.
There was a time when I was growing up in school, and they said, "Well, why do you want to be?" I don't know how they called us back then, Negro maybe. Why do you want to be a Negro? You could pass for Filipino. I said, and that comment stunned me. It was about third grade, fourth grade, but it stuck with me.
Yes.
And how would someone wanted me to change my identity? Let's move on to another crisis. Whereas the next crisis that you take us is a crisis in the church. Tell us about the crisis in the church.
Yes. So the challenge of the family, crisis of commitment, and the response, we need to build a strong movement to establish a culture of healthy relationships, healthy marriages, healthy parenting.
Yes.
The church, I'm suggesting, is facing a crisis of mission. We do not commission people to be out in the world doing the work that Jesus called the church to do. Crisis of mission. And I think in many churches that focus on serving the poor and oppressed has been replaced with a preoccupation with health, wealth, and success.
Yes. You call out a lot of names, and if you want to know the names that he's called out, you'll have to buy the book.
And at the same time, I do have some appreciation for the ministries, even of those that I call out.
Yeah, yes, you do. And it's important to call out.
Yes.
And prosperity is an important part of, Jesus and God wants us to prosper.
Yes.
But when you focus, on only prosperity, and then every once in a while step into justice or step into serving the poor,
that's right.
But the core value being to enrich ourselves materially, we've got a problem or mission in the church.
If the most attractive and articulate preachers in the community are focused on material wealth and self-aggrandizement, then poor people are in trouble.
Yes. Well, poor people are in trouble. What are your solutions to that crisis?
I think that people who attend church should hold ministers accountable and should reward them when they do the right thing. So when churches and pastors are talking about the difficult issues that our community faces, increasing incidence of HIV/AIDS, when we talk about poverty alleviation, when we talk and act on providing health insurance for uninsured people, we're doing the right thing, and those ministers ought to be commended, celebrated, and even rewarded financially. But when we fail to, I think we ought to essentially pronounce thumbs down on those ministries that are irrelevant to the places where our people hurt.
And let's also not mention the sometimes the losing the focus of God as a God who wants us to prosper in peace with our neighbor.
Indeed.
And Jesus was a reflection of that desire for us as human beings to care for our environment and to care for one another and to love one another and not to war and kill one another.
That's why I love your program so much and the ministry and the focus you bring to AIB. Martin Luther King, another Morehouse College alumnus, really proclaimed the importance of nonviolence, not simply as a strategy, but as a lifestyle, as the key to expressing the love of Jesus.
And justice.
Yes.
What is your third crisis? Is also an interesting one, and it plays right into your new position that you start in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
I know you're already got your wheels running on it, but that's a crisis that you feel is in our colleges. I guess your historically black universities and colleges primarily.
Yes.
What crisis do you see in that?
The African American National Village is privileged to have about 110 historically black colleges and universities. Here in Atlanta, it's regarded as a headquarters for HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, because we have the Atlanta University Center with Spelman, Morehouse, Morris Brown, Clark Atlanta University, and Morehouse School of Medicine, and of course ITC, my former institution.
Absolutely.
Those schools serve a disproportionate good as they prepare over 28% of all African Americans today that are college educated, although they are only 3% of all the total schools in the country. We prepare the majority of black doctors, judges, lawyers, engineers, educators, and scientists. However, those schools were born largely after the Civil War to produce a leadership team that would lead the African American community toward a just and equitable assimilation into American society and to make an impact and a contribution to America while uplifting those former slaves. And I would argue that many of our young people today have drifted away from that sense of moral purpose, from the high calling that Mary McLeod Bethune and Morehouse President Benjamin Mays laid upon them. Many of us are simply pursuing wine and song.
Absolutely. And of course, W.E.B. Du Bois, when he refers to the talented 10th, it was not, he was saying the talented 10th must have a commitment to the 90%.
Yes.
And to help become not only a talented 10th, but to expand that to a talented 20th and a 30th and a 40th. And that would be the responsibility of people like you and people like that are running Morehouse and the other HBCUs that are in the country. And indeed, the obligation of non-historically black colleges and universities to speak to the issues of why the African American community is as it is, and what are some of the solutions. And speak the true history of ourselves about about our Holocaust and about the sacrifice that was made by our people, our ancestors, who would rather jump off the boat than to be enslaved. And that history, and that our lineage comes from the queens and the kings that have educated Greece,
Yes.
and educated Rome, have educated Europe. And this is our lineage, and that was a lineage that we must call upon to do what we need to do as African Americans. And I'm so proud that Morehouse had the wisdom to select you to be its 10th president. You follow a long line. When I was at Morehouse, I had the benefit of being there when Benjamin Mays, it was in my graduation year was 1969.
Yes.
And during that year, well, I entered in 1966 as a transfer student, but that's a whole different story. But I came at the time when Morehouse was celebrating its 100th year.
Yes, you were there for the,
I was
the
there for that.
1967 final commencement of Dr. Mays.
Absolutely,
Yes.
and I remember Dr. Mays and Sadie Mays. Dr. Mays walking in his white suit,
yes,
and Sadie Mays walking because you lived on campus.
Wonderful image.
Wonderful experience. I'm so glad that I didn't miss that opportunity.
Yes.
I was also there for in April of 1968.
Yes.
And that experience with the King assassination,
Yes.
and I did my little part as a senior in helping to organize that particular event, along with so many others. That was a powerful experience that came to us. And again, we must find good in that experience.
Yes. I may have seen you on television because as a sophomore sitting on the south side of Chicago, I watched that King Memorial on television. And my father said, as we looked at Morehouse and Benjamin Mays and the dignity of the campus and the gathered faculty and students, he said, I want you to go to that.
Well, I was at the corner of Fair Street and Ashby. That was my station.
Okay.
And, I don't expect you to remember
Perhaps
me.
not. You made a real impression on me, Don. You're the reason I attended Morehouse.
But Morehouse College is dear to us because it reflects so much of the solutions
Yes.
of our crisis.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be a much better, much potent college because of your involvement. What is your vision? What do you plan to do if Morehouse is not fulfilling or its mission as it could at the level that it should?
Yes.
What do you see as important to you to tackle in terms of your goals, your vision for the college?
Yes. Well, let me say that since 1867, Morehouse College has been committed to preparing African American men as leaders of their communities and of the larger world. And I want to give credit to President Walter Eugene Massey for the terrific work he did in building a strong foundation that I'm now able to build upon and to flourish upon. Essentially, my vision is to ensure that Morehouse becomes a global resource for educated and ethical leaders. And Morehouse men, I believe, should be the Renaissance men with a social conscience. Mm-hmm. Dr. King embodied that, you embody it, and I want every single student that shows up on that campus to spend 4 or 5 years with us to develop cognitive and character excellence.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the vision that all of us want to see happen. We want to see our college shine and stand out and continue to pump out not just corporate.
Captains of commerce.
Captains of commerce at various levels.
Yes.
But we want to create those leaders who have a commitment,
Yes.
who feel the drums of their ancestors and can know that they come from a stock that shared and that they loved. And that we need to build those types of models that I saw I was there when Howard Thurman came and gave an address.
Yes.
And I think I was a sophomore then. But and I can't ever remember anything that he said. But all I know and what I remembered following his message was that this is a remarkable being.
Yes. I bet you remember the image he often shared, that above the head of every Morehouse student there is a crown into which he must study and grow and stretch and strive to earn, to wear. And so that is the image that it's been a long time. And all I can remember that this was I was privileged to be there listening to him, because I didn't have so much of the background of who Howard Thurman was. And but we need that spirit as part, not only at Morehouse, but really throughout our village. That type of spiritual understanding to reflect what God wants us to do, to take care of our earth, to take care of our families, to take care of our planet, and to provide leadership that will steer in the direction of peace and not war, of prosperity and not greed. And those were the values that I felt when I was in Morehouse College. Let me talk about some other solutions that you feel could be used in terms of elevating or pushing forward our community. Yes. The final chapter really is a chapter on strategies. And what I argue is it's important to begin in prayer. So I talk about the importance of spiritual renewal preceding community, economic, political, and educational renewal and renaissance. After the praying women and men of the church have done and begun their work, then it's time to gather for conversation. So it's a call to conversation. But not just talk fests, but strategic conversation as the elders of the village come together and decide and make specific assignments to specific churches and schools and leaders and nonprofit organizations. What will you do for the kids that are getting into trouble Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m.?
Other than jailing them.
Indeed, other than jailing. And then, of course, challenging a prosperous and good nation to spend more resources helping these young people, because a lot of my students at Morehouse and at other colleges and universities in Atlanta cannot continue education because they simply can't afford it. The cost has skyrocketed in the past 20 years. We've got to make college education affordable. Then I call for a culture of planning, of strategic planning, so that if certain groups take on the issue of helping formerly incarcerated people return to communities, that's their assignment. Other groups will focus on teaching HIV/AIDS awareness and responsible sexuality. That's their assignment, and we hold them accountable. Right now, I think it's a kind of free-for-all. We're much too ad hoc, but we're losing ground at a time when African Americans are more assimilated and more wealthy and better educated than ever before.
Yeah, and not exercising that authority in the direction that it should be.
Yes.
And of course, a lot of other communities are progressing, and the separation between who gets and who doesn't get is expanding. So we need to develop a consciousness, a political consciousness that reflects the social gospel of Jesus. I have started this program started taping in March 2003. That was the beginning of our long war.
Yes.
Starting in Iraq at that time. I started airing this program in May of 2003. These candles have been lit since during every program, and I've had 54 programs. These candles have been glowing for many wonderful people. I can't name names at this time to the numbers of people that have shared a vision of peace and justice.
Yes.
I am going to do this ceremony with you.
Thank you.
In memory of one, Dr. Mays's reference to a candle in the dark. And we are together extinguishing the old and passing to the new. I'm going to keep these. These are going to be part of my life for the rest of my life.
Yes, wonderful.
Because they symbolize a lot for me. I like this candle to continue to bless the village, to bless our ancestors who continue to speak to us in many ways, and hope that the young people come to understand that they are children of kings, of scientists,